Dear colleagues, we would like to invite you, only two fingers, sorry, to invite you to an exciting play.
Exciting? How am I going to tell them it's exciting?
To data-driven play that will reveal.
Is play really the right word?
Research-based performance
I like research-based.
that will assist you in better understanding.
How will I assist in better understanding?
Right, that's sort of pretentious, isn't it, that you don't understand already? I'm talking down to my audience. That's not very inviting now, is it? That will assist us in articulating.
That's a bit of a big word, don't you think, articulating? Can you make it a little more informal?
Will assist us in understanding.
It kind of needs to be formal, though.
Well,
These are my colleagues, after all. I work with them. They need to see me as a professional.
Okay. Scratch that whole bloody thing. On Saturday, November 9th,
It is the 9th, right?
yes, November 9th, wait a second.
7 to 9?
November 9th, 7 to 9, we request your presence.
I'm sorry, that's still too formal. You're invited. We warmly invite you, or we
We
want to include you in a conversation.
warmly invite you into a collegial conversation.
This isn't a love letter. More formality.
2 a.m. Save. I'll do it in the morning. And that's the scenes that we have prepared. So we would like to just move into just a little bit more conversation about the bricks in the wall and how do we make it inviting, technical, formal, all of these multiple voices, and remove some of those misunderstandings and bricks so we can enter into collegial relationships with one another. Any closing thoughts? Yes.
I had this ongoing sort of increasing sense of anxiety about watching the interactions, in that the thing that I started to feel more and more is the degree to which the actions that look like anger, look like a number of different things, really might be just driven by plain fear. And that never gets named, that's very difficult to attend to. And so in hearing it over and over again, oh, we just really want to protect the children, we want to protect the children. Well, you know, when do we get to say we really want to protect ourselves? And the researchers can very easily say, well, this is an invitation into the unknown. And the unknown might make us all look really bad.
Yeah.
There really is real fear and risk in that, and it's never named, and in never naming it, it becomes so agitating to me to watch it, actually, because it looks like anger, and it looks like hostility, and it looks like resistance, but I feel it as fear.
Nicely articulated. And I mean, I think it's an honest response, and I'm not defending that either, in that I think what we try to do is articulate some of the lived experiences that people feel, and thanks for helping us name that as well. The quote that I'm still trying to track down, I heard years ago, he who controls the fear of the nation controls the nation. And we won't tonight all debate the No Child Left Behind Act and how my analysis, it's based upon fear and control. But we not all may disagree, but it's all for the good of the children. You know, that same sort of thing. So how do we invite, or how do we enter when even that first step is a fearful step as researchers? How do we enter into a collegial, collaborative environment when both of us live in a degree of suspicion with one another? And we're not going to answer that tonight. In fact, one of our comments we say, we like to leave our audiences with haunting questions. You know, we're not going, because the next time you enter a situation like this, hopefully some traces of this play come to us. And as a result of that, we may act differently. And we've heard many times with other research that we've done, people have gotten back to us, said, I stopped using that phrase as a result of seeing your play, or I started doing something. A group of kids at school started a welcome wagon for new kids at schools, because what we found, and I taught junior high, as I said, for 12 years, and one of the things I was most guilty with is I took for granted a new kid at school. They take a final exam the day they arrive. How do they fit in? You know, it's by their peers and everything else. And how do we create a place? And what the students at one particular school said, teachers can't really help, because if you align too much with that new kid, you actually exclude them from the group. So maybe we as kids have to, as students in the school, have to create our own welcome wagon to assist our new kids at school. You know, so it's, again, they're the problem plays that we try to create. So naming the fear is the first step. And then how do we take those steps? How do I alleviate your fear? How do we alleviate each other so we can enter that collaborative relationship? Help us. Any thoughts? No, and I'm serious on that.
Well, I just think that we often in IRB, the process goes through and names these risks, but it doesn't really name the risks.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't name the risks that I feel as a researcher. My risk is I'm working with teachers who I think very highly of, and I fear that something about my work will somehow reflect poorly on them.
Yeah.
You know, that's my fear, but I don't put that in my form. I don't ask them to sign that. That's not the consent. So, you know, where is it that in the process we somehow name that in the interaction?
There's ethics and then there's ethics.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know.
I know. I mean, I've worked in schools where the degree of fear and distrust was such that people said, oh, yeah, you know, I'll invite you to sit in on my teachers' meetings, but you may not hold a notebook.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, that was actually very useful to me. You've named your fear.
Yeah.
Right? You think I'm a spy.
Yeah.
In a
Never
way.
heard that word before, but I'm going to
Oh.
extend that. But that's scary. But it may you might have named something else. Honestly, I never considered myself as a researcher as a spy.
Well,
but no, but
yeah,
I can
yeah.
see how I can be perceived as one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think any steps where, uncomfortable as it is, there's a vehicle for identifying the felt fear, the felt distrust, the worry that's not just for, you know, will the children be safe in this research?
Yeah.
Well, what will happen if this research suggests our policy isn't adequate?
Yeah.
I mean, we all want it to suggest that the policies are wonderful. We want to go present at conferences together and showcase it.
Yeah.
Well, what if we run into this other thing?
That happened in sharing other stories, but I think it's an important one generally in relation to research. We wrote one that was asked by my own university, Brock University near Niagara Falls, on violence in the workplace. And we wrote a show on, one of the vignettes similar to this was on someone being $23 overdue for a library. He wanted to sign up books at the last minute, which students do. And he didn't have any cash, so he couldn't sign out the books he needed to write a paper that was due the next morning. Completely his fault in one way. But the thing that came back, and it was confirmed by the library assistants and the librarians who were in the room during a performance like this, that said, and it said, well, the policy says anything over $20, you can no longer use your card until it's paid. And I kept coming back to that until he lost it, which happens. And so we asked the audience, how do you de-escalate it? And they said they can't because the policy is rigid. There's no flexibility in the policy. And as a result of that, that is what the policy itself was at fault. And the university's policy considers library fines and traffic tickets as revenue. So that was brought back and discussed among the librarians about how do we build a sense of flexibility in policy to prevent these needless eruptions to occur. And we're not excusing the young man in the scene about that, but policy itself, this may re-inform policy in some ways, IRB. You know, I know the one that I deal with, it has to be cold. It can't be inviting, yet I call it a letter of invitation. You know, and I think we were playing just a little bit with that in that last scene.
I have to say one other thing that I found myself bothered by throughout, and it relates to Beth's idea. I think those risks are very real for schools, that we
Yes.
are going to come in and reveal something or whatever. But I think those risks can be diminished somewhat if we come in not as researchers, but we come in as collaborators.
Yes.
And this is what I've seen you do really well, is partner with teachers and let the research emerge out of their questions, not
Exactly.
ours.
Yeah.
And what I saw here was researchers coming with their agenda and the school with their agenda, and those didn't necessarily come together. I think there's other ways that we can collaborate with schools, not necessarily as researchers, but as, hey, what do we want to learn here together? And
Yes.
then the research emerges out of the questions that are authentic to, and then they're less scary because we're actually asking them. And if something shows up that's scary, well, it's because we asked for that information, because we intend to do something, not as a gotcha kind of approach.
And I think we tend to be guilty on that. I'm not saying everyone or various degrees. I'm teaching To Kill a Mockingbird through drama in a high school right now with a former student of 10 years ago that I have a good working relationship. It hasn't moved to the research stage, and it may or it may not, but there's a sense of collaboration of me relearning some of the subtleties of the methodology that I profess on campus. You know, so right now it's more professional development. But I think, knowing a little bit of the history of this particular one, it happened with a conversation with the principal and the researcher. And it moved that way, and then it went a little sideways.